Hello, everybody. This is Steve Yoder. Welcome to week 10 in Legal Studies 246, the legal environment of business, here in the summer of 2017 at the UAB Collat School of Business. This week we are looking at two topics. One is the law of sales, and when we talk about sales in this course, we don't mean the special discounts that might be in place at a store. We mean sales of goods. This is a separate subset of the law of contracts. And we will also be looking at the law of debtor and creditor rights. A debtor is a borrower and a creditor is a lender. Here is a look at Module 10. You can see that we have learning activities for Chapter 14 of the textbook and learning activities for Chapter 15. Here are the Chapter 14 learning activities. As usual, there are some PowerPoint slides. There's a narrated version of the slides, and you will see that there is a video here that addresses a very important part of the law of the sale of goods, and that is the subject of warranties and liabilities that arise for sellers of goods. And in this particular video, it's a very distressing topic of defective pool drains. Here is a look at the learning activities for Chapter 15, creditor and debtor rights. You can't see it in this slide, but make sure that you look at that pie chart inside the learning module, because that pie chart, hint, is the subject of one of the questions for the second exam that's going to be opening up in just a couple of days on Thursday, July 12 at 5 p.m. and closing on Friday, July 13 at 11:59 p.m. The Uniform Commercial Code is the basis for the law of sale of goods, and if something is a good, we automatically go to that particular rule book. You don't look at the regular law of contracts that we have been talking about the last 2 weeks. The regular law of contracts relates to sales of services and sales of land. We are talking about goods. So we need to know what a good is. Pause, look at this, and make sure you understand that when we are looking at that. Usually a tangible thing that is movable. The Uniform Commercial Code also only applies when there is a merchant involved, usually the merchant selling it. So someone selling something at a garage sale is probably not a merchant. Someone who is selling at a garage sale is not in the business of selling what we call goods. There are some very significant differences for the law of the sale of goods from the law of contracts for services and real estate. Generally, you could call the Uniform Commercial Code contract law light, and here are the main differences. The way to remember it is that the Uniform Commercial Code generally makes it easier for something that the parties who want to sell goods are calling a contract to become a contract and to be enforced as a contract. The law does not want those types of agreements to fail. We'll be looking at what are the remedies for a breach of a contract for sale of goods, and as we'll see, it often depends on where the goods are. As I said, we'll be looking at the special aspect of the Uniform Commercial Code on the sale of goods, and that is the warranties, the liabilities to the seller that can arise. There are several different types of warranties that we'll be looking at. One would be an express warranty, an express promise about the quality of a fur coat, for example. The Uniform Commercial Code, though, very importantly, creates two types of implied warranties. That is, warranties that arise even if you don't say them out loud. Then we'll be moving on to the next chapter of the textbook and looking at the laws that help lenders and also known as creditors, and the laws that help borrowers, also known as debtors. Here are some laws that help lenders. There are a great many of them. These two concepts, very important. I can promise you that there will be several questions on the second exam about these two concepts. These concepts exist to help lenders, and they are called suretyship and guarantee, and it is extremely important that you know the difference between those two concepts. And then we'll be looking at the topic of bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is a set of laws that, per the U.S. Constitution, exists at the federal level, not at the state level. There is one body of bankruptcy law that is written in Washington, D.C., and the bankruptcy code is divided into several chapters, and we usually refer to those chapters to talk about the different forms of bankruptcy. Usually, when we're talking about bankruptcy, we're talking about people who voluntarily decide that they want to file for bankruptcy. Here's a very important concept. The bankruptcy code was amended about 10 or 15 years ago to make it more difficult for consumers to file for bankruptcy. Congress added a provision that said that if you make above a certain amount of money and try to file for bankruptcy, you will be presumed to be trying to abuse the bankruptcy system, and you will get thrown out on the grounds that you ought to be able to pay your bills. Now, you might be able to stay in, but it's going to be a little bit harder for you to do that. And every couple of years, the amounts that determine whether or not you are abusing the bankruptcy system are revised, and they were very recently revised in May of 2018, and look at what they are now. If you are a single person and you make more than $46,400 a year and you say, I want to file for bankruptcy, you will have a harder time. It won't be impossible, but you will have a harder time of getting through the bankruptcy process than if you made less than that. Businesses filed for bankruptcy under Chapter 11, they are allowed to stay in business under Chapter 11, whereas under Chapter 7 they would liquidate and go out of business. Our president touches almost every aspect of business law, including bankruptcy. He, during the campaign when he was running for president, spoke about his bankruptcies. He doesn't speak about them now that he is president, but here's an extra credit opportunity for you. By Friday night, July 13 at 11:59, which is, by the way, when the second exam closes, you can get 2 points added to that second exam if you tell me exactly what percentage of the largest 500 companies in America actually filed for bankruptcy. Donald Trump, when he was running for president, made it sound like everybody does it, and I want you to tell me, well, of the 500 largest, what is the actual percentage that have filed for bankruptcy? We will also look briefly at the process of mortgage foreclosure. I'm happy to say that we have fewer of them today than we did about 10 years ago when we were in a real financial recession, but the process is highly regulated. It's, I think, important to remember that the law does not want our houses, our homes, to be taken away from us easily. And here's an example of a mortgage foreclosure involving a former Birmingham resident, Richard Scrushy, that we will be talking about. Finally, here is the Canvas calendar for July. This is the week of July 9, and of course, we have a variety of things due on Friday night, July 13 at 11:59 p.m., including, most importantly, the second exam, which will have opened the day before. But as you can see, there are a number of other things due on Friday night. Not over the weekend, Friday night. I wish you luck on that second exam.